Hello everyone, hope you're all doing absolutely fantastic and having a marvellous, wonderful day. Before we get today's video's wheels turning, I want to ask you a question, and especially for those of you who are observant and like a little bit of a challenge and a quiz. My question is, how many times in this video do I say the words accumulated or accumulating? Because I've actually watched this video back and it's quite a lot, to the point where I kind of lost count. So put your answers in the box below, and I'll be interested to see how many times, embarrassingly, that I said the words accumulated or accumulating. And not including the times that I just said it just then. I mean, after this, yeah? So I hope you enjoy the video. Have a wonderful day. And yeah, see you soon. I'm singing in the downpour, just singing in the downpour. It's pouring of rain and I'm soaked to the skin. Do 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 do, ba-do, 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 ba-do. Oh. Ooh, hi. Hi everyone. Just having a little song and dance in the garden when it's raining, as you do. Not mad. Anyway, my name's Paul, this is It's a Camping Thing, and actually this wet weather is kind of fitting really, because it's all to talk about wet weather and camping and all the little tips and little things that I've picked up along the way to help deal with those situations. So yeah, I will catch you a little bit later on when hopefully things have dried up a little bit and I don't have to hold this bright umbrella, and I shall catch you a little bit later on. So until then, I'm going to go back to singing and dancing in my garden. Why not? Job's a good one. I'm singing in the rain. So for my first piece of advice, my first tip, if you like, I speak from experience and rather embarrassing experience, because in December of 2022, a mere 5 months ago, I went to the Lake District for one night just by myself, just me. And for that trip, I didn't check the weather forecast. Silly, stupid me, didn't check the weather forecast. And for that trip, I decided to take the Quechua Air Seconds 4.1 fresh and black tent, which is a reasonably sized tent. It's also quite heavy as well. It weighs over 15 kilograms. And for that one night and that one day, it rained and it rained and it rained. And then when it came to taking it down, obviously there's the weight of that water in the tent. I tried to get as much of it off as I could, get it in the car, get home, and then put it on the lawn, inflate the tubes as if I was going camping again, and just let nature take its course. Now, if you are going with a large family, or maybe you're going with a group of friends, 4 or 5 people, then maybe this tip doesn't apply to you, of course. But if you're going with maybe one other person and maybe yourself, then try and look at other tents that are a little bit smaller, a little bit lighter. Because if in the eventuality that it does rain, then you can come home and then throw that tent over the washing line, which is going to be infinitely quicker to dry, and then pack away, and then you can just get on with your lives. As for me, with that Quechua Air Seconds 4.1, although the weather was bad and that, I could have took a smaller tent, but that tent took nearly a week to dry. It was absolutely drenched, and yeah, with hindsight, I wish I'd taken a much smaller tent. So that's my first piece of advice. Obviously, again, if there's a group of you, then take a tent which is going to be suitable for your needs, that you're going to be happy, that you're going to have a good, enjoyable stay. But for me, that one trip for one night, was it really worth taking a large tent? And the answer for me was no. So there you go, you live and learn. For my second piece of advice is all about that feeling when you wake up in the morning and you're going, oh, okay, I got to take the tent down today, and we've had a lot of rain and that tent's going to be saturated with rain. Not a nice feeling. But the worst part is the fact you don't want to do any damage to your car by having that moisture that's on your tent, that has accumulated on your tent from all that rain. You don't want it to get it into your car. You don't want to puddle in your car that you've got to sort out. Now, I did actually have this when I went to the Conkers Camping and Caravanning Club, when I had a tent that was wet, and I kind of improvised by using one of those foil mats that you use for the bedding that you place down to reflect all the heat properties up. And basically I lined the boot with that, and then put the tent into that, and then rolled that up. I've also used bin liners as well. That's another thing that you could use. But ultimately, long term, I prefer to use dry bags. These are what you use when you go kayaking or any sort of water activities where you want to keep valuables dry. And I've got a couple of examples here. So this is a large, I think it's about a 50-litre bag, huge bag. You see that wind, that wind's bad today. I've also got a 30-litre bag here. This is a 31. And all I'm suggesting you do is you put this in your car, and then when it comes down to pack down, rather than put your tent into its normal stuff sack, which probably isn't going to be waterproof, let's be honest, that you use this instead. So you open it up, tent inside, wet tent, ew, put it all in, maybe leave the poles outside, and then you roll it up a little bit, and then you clamp it shut. Place that in your boot, then you know that that moisture, all that rain that's accumulated on your tent isn't going to get into the boot of your car and possibly do any sort of damage there. And also as well, it keeps all your other items drier as well. Then when you get home, you open this up, take your tent out, and then maybe throw your tent over a washing line or put it on the lawn and let nature do its course. And my third piece of advice is footprints. And I'm kind of ashamed of myself because these should have been folded and put away by now. It's actually a few videos ago now where I had my Nature Hike Cloud Peak 2 out here. This has been on the washing line, it's been drying, it's dry, it just needs to be folded and put away. So yeah, I love footprints. I think they offer a little bit of protection for your tent. And if you can get hold of a tent that has them included in the price, great. If not, I try and get a piece of tarpaulin or something that's very similar to go on the ground before I place my tent down. They offer a little bit of protection, but also as well, if you can imagine a scenario where you get to a campsite and maybe the weather's going to be nice whilst you're there, but the last few days it's been raining quite a lot. So all that moisture is going to be in the ground, and maybe you walk on the ground and it's kind of dry on the surface, all that surface water is evaporated, but that moisture is still going to be in the ground. You're going to put the tent down there for a few days, and then that water that's in the ground, all that moisture is going to be like attracted to your tent like a magnet and go, ooh. So you go to take your tent down, and maybe there's a little bit of condensation in your tent. So you open your doors, your windows, and you just let that condensation evaporate. Great. But then you go and peel back your tent and you realise all that moisture is accumulated on the base of your tent from all those days of rain before you arrived. Now, if you've got a footprint, all that moisture will accumulate on this rather than the base of your tent. And this is a lot easier to dry than your tent, and probably may mean that you don't have to put your tent over the washing line to dry. You can just put this over instead. This is lighter and it will dry a lot quicker. So yeah, that's tip number 3. For tip number 4, it's about zipping up all those windows and doors if you're going to be leaving the tent for any amount of time. There's a tent called the Keshwar Air Seconds 4.1. It has a lot of ventilation. It's a huge tent, and it has a mesh front door with a curtain that you zip up, and that is your waterproof layer. There's also a curtain on the side. Some tents have these to aid ventilation, so just make sure that all these waterproof layers are fully zipped up before you leave for any amount of time, because the last thing you want to be doing is going out for the day and then realise that when you're a couple of miles away from your campsite that it's pouring down with rain and that your interior of your tent is going to become like a puddle. So yeah, just zip up all those areas. Now, I don't need to tell you this because I'm sure each and every one of you are very well educated, but if you store your tent away and it is wet, either by rainwater or by condensation which is built up on the inside of your tent, you're going to ruin it straight away. You are going to ruin it. Mold and mildew will accumulate on your tent over a period of time and make your tent into one unusable, smelly, horrible, yucky mess that no one wants to go anywhere near and is only fit for the bin. So this tip, number 5, is all about condensation and trying to eliminate the best way we can. So the first thing you should always do is when you are pitching down is to open all the doors and windows and try and let the air come through to allow that condensation to evaporate. We can also speed that process up by using one of these absorbency cloths. I got this from B&M stores. It was only a couple of pounds, and it's in a bag because we want to keep the moisture on this. We want it to be kind of pliable. And this one is called a spongy. There we go, spongy. Kind of dirty, but spongy. And what I tend to do is I take this out of its bag and then I'll wipe that away, and then all that condensation will accumulate on this, and then you can literally squeeze it and all that moisture will go out. And the reason why I keep it in this bag here is because this is kind of soft and flexible and kind of rubberized feeling. Put that back in there. But if we don't put it in the bag, then this is what happens. Look, it's the same. Look, it's a same brand spongy, right? And this is hard. That's no good. That's no good. So try and keep it in one of these bags. Now, condensation will occur if we have cold night and you're expelling warm carbon dioxide from your lungs. That will accumulate on your tent and make condensation, and then you've got a wet interior and it's horrible and yucky, but that's just physics for you folks. And yeah, using one of these absorbency sponges, opening all as many doors and windows as you can on your tent, depends on the make and model of your tent, but using one of these is a surefire way to speed up that process. Tip number 6 is regarding large tents, and I'm lucky I've got a reasonable sized garden. I can come home, place my tent on the lawn, I can let nature take its course and I can dry it. That is fundamentally the best way to let your tent dry, whether it be on a washing line or pitched up at home. Just let nature take its course. Now, as I said, large tents can pose a little bit of a problem, and the fact that a lot of the moisture can accumulate on the base of the tent. Now, I found this especially with my Quechua Air Seconds 4.1, which is a large tent, got quite a large footprint. And what I tend to do with that, even if I am using a footprint, maybe there is still some moisture on the bottom, is I fold it into quarters. So I'd lay it on the lawn, and then what I'll do is I'll roll back a quarter of the tent and I'll use a towel and then dry that base off. Let the sun get to it, maybe leave it for 20 minutes, towel again, and then roll it again up to the 50% mark, towel, again, let the sun do its course, then roll it to 75%, towel, until it's completely done. Then once that's done, I can take it over to a concreted area, which I know is gonna be bone dry, and then I can put it into its stuff sack there. So that's tip number 6. For tip number 7, you're just gonna have to excuse me for, because I've got to make a very important phone call. Sorry. Hi, James. Hello, mate. Hello. Yeah, I'm all right, mate. I'm all right. I hope Carly and the kids are all right. Yeah? Yeah. Listen, mate, I've been out camping for a few days. I've got a huge 7-berth tent. My lawn is not big enough to fit it on, and it's been raining whilst we were away. We had a bit of a whatever time. And yeah, it's soaking through. I can't fit it on my lawn. Is there any chance at all that I could pop the tent round and just pitch it up and leave it there for a couple of days and let it dry out? Is that going to be all right? Brilliant. Cheers, mate. I'll bring some beers round. We'll have a good old catch up, and yeah, I owe you one for this. Cheers, mate. Lovely. Say hi to the kids for me. Carly and the kids. All right, mate. Cheers, mate. Bye. Yeah, there you go. That's tip number 7. Phone a friend. You know, we've all got friends and that, and some of them have got quite large gardens. And if you have a tent which is humongous and maybe your garden doesn't quite fit, then phone a friend. See who's got a garden that you can put your tent on for a few days and let it dry. There you go. Simple as. For tip number 8, don't use a washing machine on rinse mode or a tumble dryer. You will effectively not only ruin your tent, but also your washing machine or tumble dryer. It is just not worth it. Do not use a washing machine or tumble dryer to dry your tent. That's just lunacy. And if you do that, we can't be friends. And, you know, we need a world of friends. So please don't do that. That's just silly. But tip number 9 is about entertainment. Yeah, whatever entertainment suits you, whatever you like, take some with you, because there's nothing worse than getting to a campsite where you've got lovely blue skies and you're thinking, great, we're going to be in for a fantastic few days. And then all of a sudden Mother Nature goes, not on my watch, not this week. And then all of a sudden the skies start to darken and the rain begins to fall, and it's going to be torrential rain, and you're stuck inside your tent. The grass outside your tent is getting all muddy and you're thinking, no, I think I'm just going to stay inside the tent. And maybe you're thinking, I'll have a nice little nap. Let the rain ease off. So you could do that, but you could also take your mobile phone, maybe a power bank to make sure that it's fully charged. And before you go away, download a movie or something. You know, anything to keep you entertained. Maybe you're into knitting, take some yarn with you. Whatever floats your boat, you know what you're interested in. Maybe watch some YouTube videos. maybe it's a camping thing. You know, there we go. So that's tip number 9, because there's nothing worse than being totally bored and stuck inside your tent when Mother Nature wants to not play ball, which she can do. She can be a mischievous lady. For tip number 10, we're looking at these things. Pegs or stakes. Probably got a few lying around anyway. Now I've got a couple of different variations here. I've got a titanium one here from Vango. Reasonably good peg, quite good. Not really had that much of a problem with them. And then you've got the Nature Hike ones. These, again, pretty good. A little bit on the short side, and I don't particularly like these paracord at the end. I tend to find that, yeah, just not great. And then I've got these 9-inch ones, which I bought from Go Outdoors. I've got quite a few of these, about 30 of them. Now, personally for me, if it looks like it's been raining for a few days or the ground is in any way, shape or form wet, I prefer these. Why? Because if you're going to hammer this all the way up to the head, then you've got pretty much 9 inches of steel into the ground, which is a lot better than that. Now, if it has been raining for a while, then the ground's going to be moist, and possibly you get a gust of wind, it could move and then possibly dislodge your stake or your peg. So I prefer a 9-inch one wherever possible. Now, if I'm going to be going wild camping, my preference is going to be smaller and lighter every single time, whether it be the Nature Hike or the Vango ones. I would prefer to use these. However, I will take maybe 4 of these for the corners of the tent, the bigger ones, just to be on the safe side, especially like with rocks and all that. These are fantastic for that. Now, if I'm going to be going to a campsite where my car's going to be a few yards away, then I would take probably 20 of these. For guide ropes, everything, the lot. Because, say, if we do get some wet weather, weight isn't so much of an issue with campsite camping. If I'm going to be going wild camping, the weight is certainly an issue, and I want to cut down every single ounce and gram that I can in these ones, and I'll just have to hope that it does the job. But I've got 4 of these with my wild camping just to be on the safe side. So that's tip number 10. For tip number 11, I've oddly run out of fingers. Please do not use any imagination. Anyhow, for tip number 11, imagine this. We've got a large family tent, maybe a 4 or 5 berth tent. We can't throw it over a washing line, so we need to use the lawn. We've been at a campsite for 3 or 4 days, and when we arrived, Mother Nature decided to be rather naughty, and it rained for 3 or 4 days every single day. After 3 or 4 days, we decided, you know what, that's enough, and we came home. And then Mother Nature just goes, ha, 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 I'm going to play another trick. You may have been away for 3 or 4 days, but now, sunshine, beautiful blue sunshine. Shame it wasn't like this at the campsite. She can be a crafty one at times. So you get home, you've got this really heavy tent. You need to lay out on the lawn. If it's got inflation tubes, you inflate them. If it's got poles, you slide them through and erect that tent as if you're going to be pitching out for the night. But this tent is absolutely saturated. When you was at the campsite, it was pouring down with rain. Maybe that rain has got into every single part of that tent, the inner part, as you rolled it up to get it into the car to come home. So every single part needs to be bone dry. So you get it home, you lay it out on the lawn, you've pitched it up. Now this is the part. Open up all the doors and the windows of that tent, because what we want to do is we want to allow the air to circulate, to enter the tent. If you're going to be rolling up the doors and the windows, then any moisture that's accumulated on those doors and windows is going to be trapped because you've rolled it up. Not good. So keep them flapping in the wind. Let that breeze come in. Welcome breeze, welcome into my tent, and let it dry every single part of your tent. Let it take its time. But, ladies and gentlemen, keep an eye on the weather, because we all know Mother Nature can be quite crafty. And whilst your tent is out here in the blue sky, and you could be inside watching TV or maybe a YouTube channel, for all you know, there could be a dark cloud on the horizon full of rainfall that's going to jeopardize your drying process. So you could be in there unbeknownst to the fact it's going to rain in about 10 minutes time. So keep an eye on the rain, keep an eye on the weather, keep coming out here and checking it, making sure the fact that there's no rain coming in and that your drying is actually working. But should that rain begin to fall, shut all your doors, shut all your windows, because otherwise that rain is going to enter through into your tent and then possibly undo all that hard work that you've just spent doing with all the blue sky. There we go. That's tip number 11. Well, there we go. There's all my tips and tricks that I've learned over the last few years about dealing with wet weather and camping. And let's be honest, Camping in wet weather can be a bit of a nightmare at times. It can be a bit of a challenge. Now, for those of you who are really, really observant, you'll notice that this looks a little bit different. The sun's actually slowly rising over there in the east. And that's because this is filmed on the Saturday. I had a look at my video that I initially got out, and I looked at tip number 4, and I thought, actually, it's not really that great of a tip. So my initial tip for number 4 was to use different pegs for your tent that you hang over the washing line as opposed to the ones that you used for your washing, because mud can accumulate on your tent, especially if it's going to be raining a lot of mud. And the last thing you want to do is get that mud that's going to be on the pegs onto your clothes. Not a huge one, which is why I came out into the garden to add the one in about the doors and the windows. And there we go. But if you are looking at your screen right now and screaming at it and going, why didn't he say this? Why didn't he say that? And you've got an amazing tip for keeping your tent and your gear nice and dry, put it in the comments below. Be happy to share it with the rest of the world. All I ask is the fact you be respectful of others and you be polite. That's all I ask for. We're a community. It's a Camping Thing is a community, and I love having people talking about camping here on the channel. It's brilliant. So if you found this video in any way helpful, please consider liking, leaving a comment and subscribing to the channel. Incidentally, today I'm actually filming another video. It's 6 o'clock in the morning as I'm recording this. The sun's really rising now. I've got a really busy day, so there's plenty more videos to come in the pipeline, and I hope if you haven't subscribed that you subscribe to the channel and you can come along and watch them. I'm going to go inside, get warmed up and get some breakfast, so cheers folks, see you soon.